Hey guy, ever wonder what would happen if Minato lived? Let's find out. Minato Namikaze stood vigilantly, observing the masked man from a distance. His beloved wife had passed away just 2 days ago, yet he found himself shadowing this individual, concealing his presence. Witnessing the man manipulate the young leader of the Mist Village, he knew that it was imperative to remain vigilant and gather information. Today marked the day of the imminent attack, and Minato had assembled a team comprised of his confidant Fugaku, mentor Jiraiya, the esteemed third Hokage, and the dignified Senju princess. Taking no risks, he had also placed his son Naruto under the protection of his student Kakashi, along with a battalion of his highly trained Jonin and Anbu forces. Although he had little time to mourn the loss of his wife, he refused to allow himself to grieve for his son too. Minato had meticulously planned the battle strategy. He would teleport his team into the fray while Jiraiya invoked the power of the Sage Mode, accompanied by the 2 venerable Elder Frogs. By beginning the assault with a cacophonous frog song, he hoped to intimidate the masked man and make him vulnerable. Quickly executing his plan, he would then teleport behind the enemy, remove the mask, neutralize his chakra, and transport him to a secure facility. Although the plan was uncomplicated, he anticipated its success. The rest of the team remained on high alert for any unexpected developments. Minato had gathered his allies, each armed with a kunai. He had last seen the masked man enter a cave, so he focused his chakra and teleported the team to the exact location, relieved that they were not in another dimension. Upon arrival, he quickly surveyed the area, noting a red-haired boy, a plant, a girl, and many others donning the same cloak. Ah, more people, he thought to himself. Ready to signal the attack, his smile vanished in an instant. A kunai suddenly dropped, and the seal tag was in his possession, overlaid in the same spot where he had placed the Flying Thunder God mark. The tag restricted the masked man's chakra levels, rendering him powerless, and deactivated his eye. The enemy fell, and before he could hit the ground, Minato transported him to a kunai that had remained motionless. Glancing around, Jiraiya had dismissed his frogs and appeared bewildered, observing the red-haired, orange-haired, and blue-haired individuals, along with everyone else who appeared equally puzzled. Admitting to himself that even he was a bit confused, Minato shed his serious demeanor and resolved to offer explanations. After an hour of catching up, making new acquaintances, some emotional breakdowns from Jiraiya, and many explanations, the team emerged unscathed, much to their surprise. Although he knew that he couldn't leave the world just yet, his top priority was to raise his son amidst such turbulent circumstances. As he regarded the masked man, who was now bound with numerous seals and discharging white fluid from his arm, everyone focused on him. Minato knelt down, placing his hands on the swirls in the mask, peering back with dark eyes. He removed the mask, revealing the face of a man who had been his trusted ally during the war. "Obito, why?" he asked, his voice low and heavy with emotion. Obito Uchiha's face was twisted with pain, but his eyes showed no remorse. "It's all because of Rin," he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "I had to do it to protect her." Minato's heart sank as he remembered the young girl who had been a dear friend to him and Obito. He knew that Obito had always harbored feelings for Rin, but he had never thought that it would lead to this. "I'm sorry, Obito," Minato said, his voice breaking. "But what you did was wrong. You cannot justify it." Obito's eyes widened in surprise, as if he hadn't expected Minato to say that. "I know," he said, his voice barely audible. "I know it was wrong, but I couldn't let her die. I couldn't bear it." Minato sighed heavily, feeling the weight of the world on his shoulders. He knew that he would have to take Obito back to Konoha and face the consequences of his actions. But for now, he just wanted to mourn his wife and take care of his son. "Come on, Obito," he said, helping him to his feet. "Let's go home." As they disappeared in a swirl of leaves, Minato knew that he had a lot of work to do. But he was ready for it. He was the 4th Hokage of Konoha, after all. And he was going to make sure that his village was safe, no matter what. Minato Namikaze returned to Konoha with a larger entourage than expected, consisting of 3 orphans from the Land of Rain and a former student. After handing them over to the IT department, he headed to his office to tackle the tasks at hand. As he arrived, he received a letter from the Land of Iron regarding a 5-Kage summit, but a sudden wave of fatigue and stomach discomfort forced him to take a brief rest. During his break, he reflected on the recent mission in the land of rain and the hardships the orphans faced. As he gazed out the window, the bustling streets and serene rooftops of Konoha reminded him of his dedication to the village and its people. Rejuvenated, he returned to his desk to prepare for the upcoming summit, which he knew would address the looming threat of the masked man who controlled Yagura. However, his preparations were interrupted when a messenger burst into his office with alarming news. Orochimaru of the Sun-In had been spotted fleeing the village, and many clan children had gone missing. Minato knew he had to act quickly to protect his people and find the missing children, even if it meant putting his own safety at risk. With determination in his heart, he set off to face the challenges ahead as Hokage of Konoha. The Orochimaru situation had necessitated an urgent meeting, which had left his Anbu and all the clans incensed. Minato's thoughts were consumed with concern for his son and how Kushina would react upon discovering he hadn't seen their child since the day he was born. In addition to this, he had the daunting task of aiding the Rain orphans, attending a 5-Kage meeting, and rescuing 5 children, all within 6 hours. However, as the meeting drew to a close, he was suddenly struck on the neck, leaving him incapacitated. Hiruzen Sarutabi quickly came to his aid, picking up Minato and passing him to Jiraiya. He then sat down, requesting to be briefed on the situation. After only 2 minutes, Hiruzen rose to his feet and set off to confront his former student. 2 hours later, Hiruzen received news via a canine messenger, which had been relayed through 4 teams of Anbu, that the children had been located, and Orochimaru was with them. He handed over a small sum and instructed the messenger to pass it on for him. An hour later, Hiruzen arrived second only to Orochimaru. Leaving his cave, the man looked just as smug as ever. "Oh, has Sensei come to play knight and save the lost children?" he hissed. But before the mouth that had half finished that oh so nasty hiss could finish, it was smashed through 9 different trees. Then the head turned into snakes that rushed at Hiruzen. Meanwhile, the real Orochimaru came out of a tree quickly. His staff turned into a monkey that punched Orochimaru in the face, sending him sliding back. Hiruzen quickly used Shadow Shuriken to get rid of the hundreds of snakes. As soon as they were gone, Orochimaru drew a sword and dashed back at Hiruzen. The monkey poofed back into a staff, and they clashed. "Well, Sensei, having fun? How do you like playing knight?" Orochimaru was going to let Hiruzen respond, but a huge snake with 2 heads burst through the trees. The Monkey King Enma, being the strongest summon, was able to turn into his monkey form, kick Orochimaru's sword, and catch the snake. Pushing it past Hiruzen, the 1vs1 of summons and teacher began. Orochimaru tried to take the lead, but the fists of the 2-Kage level shinobi clashed. Hiruzen quickly did one-handed hand signs. He wasn't in the mood for jutsu names and just let the compressed water beam shoot out, cutting Orochimaru in half. However, that didn't last long. Orochimaru used his old body to punch Hiruzen's head to the side while he spit himself a new body. Hiruzen's head slid to the side, the water going with it, barely missing Enma and cutting one of the snake's heads clean off. This allowed Enma to gain some footing and start fighting against the snake, dodging its now last head. Hiruzen started some hand signs, allowing fire to pass out of his mouth into the snake's eyes. Landing, he quickly turned into a staff and pushed out, hitting the snake so hard it had to reverse summon itself back to its cave. He looked back to his master, getting punched but still wrapping his hands around Orochimaru's other hand and slamming him down. But while down, Orochimaru decided the battle was lost. Lightning struck the water all around the floor, stunning the man. Smoke also started to come around. Orochimaru disappeared to the same place the snake had disappeared. Hiruzen let a tear go. Another failure to the list. Anbu would walk upon the Hokage with a giant snake head behind him, surrounded by children he was holding. Minato woke up with his baby boy in his arms and smiled before Jiraiya started to ruffle his hair. "Well, our knight, the old man, got the orphans back." Minato smiled, relieved that at least the council could be off his back. "And Orochimaru?" Jiraiya frowned. Apparently, from Anbu reports, it was a great battle. The old man almost died, and he escaped to the snake cave. "The old man is getting checked out, but you've got a meeting and a couple of guards to pick up," which made Minato groan. He handed over his son and flashed away. In the land of iron, Minato had luckily been here before and dropped a marker about a minute's walk away so he could be here whenever for these meetings. He walked in with his guards. He had left Jiraiya with the rain team to talk about some plans Jiraiya had made for them, so he had decided to throw a mask and some chakra sealings over his eye and brought Kakashi along to catch up with an old friend. As they started to walk, they passed a samurai greeting them while talking with Kakashi and Obito. Kakashi was having an almost mental breakdown over this. After all, he had seen the man die, but Minato signaled them to shush as they entered. Kakashi looked at his sensei with a betrayed look but quickly regained his composure, walking in and tapping the man with the mask's shoulder before starting to sign to him. Minato sat down, looking around at the fourth Reikage, the third Sushikage, fourth Mitsukage, and the fourth Kazekage, with the guards leaving to sit a row above them while the samurai leader began. Let it be known, any acts of violence in this natural land will be considered an international offense, and that actions will be met with consequences. Now, fourth Mitsukage Yagura, please take over as you have called us all here. Yagura looked around before speaking. I called this meeting because, while inside my own village, a man with a Sharingan came before me and put me in a genjutsu that I could not even comprehend. It was for a day, and I did not break it. Maybe he did, but I called this to question the leaf and ask why, on the treaty we hold, bring a Uchiha into my village and do this. Minato sighed. He had thought of lying but quickly dismissed it. It would ruin his reputation with his political side, so he then pointed up to Obito and started speaking. Mitsukage, you do know of the rumors that a man with a Sharingan killed my wife and flattened my village with her beast, correct? The man nodded. Well, that man is the one responsible. The other guards, especially the ones from the mist, put their hands on their weapons. But he was being caught suddenly. The Stonekage jumped in. Uchiha controlled you. You are funny with your games, Namikaze. Minato growled. Yes, as said before, he too was the man who killed many of my village. Now, as I was saying, his memories from this time are missing and had been for about 4 hours. Flashback. Inoichi clocked in and started with his hand signs as he started to sort through the day. Suddenly, a stop and then right back to when he was crushed. A jump of many years, no matter what he tried, it was like nothing was there. End of flashback. Minato continued retelling. We believe what controlled him came into our rooms and removed his memory to remain in the shadows. It is scared. Yagura looked stern. Well, the boy should still be punished for being so foolish. Do you not believe? The Stonekage quickly agreed. The Leafskage quickly went to respond, but with Kakashi and Obito, the two men had been rapidly hand-signing at each other, quick arguments. As the summit continued, the man was clearly very angry about something. But in fact, due to not remembering which, Minato's sensei had pointed out he didn't know and was still looking mad about anything, even as the hand-sign conversation deviated to something more light, like how Kakashi still wore the ugly mask and how Obito now looked as dumb as ever. A couple of hours had passed, and it had heated up, cooled down, and more politics between the nations were discussed. At the very end, everyone was clearly ready to leave, and Minato, wanting to be out the most, flashed to Obito and then quickly back at his home. Sarutobi sat with a 4-year-old boy next to him. Hello, Minato. I have come to inform you of my leaving to see my son for a while, the man sighed. Sarutobi had been very helpful, giving him breaks. But with him going to what he assumed was to see Asuma, his last son who was still fighting in the Great Fire 12 or the Guardians or whatever they called themselves, and him leaving meant one thing. For how long? Minato asked, prodding at it. For the foreseeable future, Minato. I have realized that this is not what my wife would have wanted. Me to die barely even knowing my last son, and Orochimaru has shown me with my head almost coming off that I am not as spry and youthful as I once was. So I would like to hand in my forms to retire and bring the Sarutobi clan or what remains to the Fire Nation's capital, Sarutobi said. Minato just nodded, sighing. His wisdom would be great to have around, but he understood they were leading very similar paths all. Quick notes: Konohamaru and Naruto have had their age differences split. I like Konohamaru and would like to make him more relevant. In Konoha, Herzen was saying his goodbyes, but two teens were talking at Training Ground 7. So where's Rin? Kakashi asked, pained as he knew, due to Minato's explanation of Obito's situation, that this might have come up. She died later in the Great Ninja War. Obito looked at him, confused, mad, and angry. What, Kakashi? Kakashi prepared himself. I don't know, Obito. Apparently, she had the three tails in her, and I was fighting Kiri ninjas, and I hit her with a Chidori. Kakashi was so confused. He had held himself back at the summit, allowing himself to make jokes, but God was he confused. But he wasn't confused enough to jump away from some wood coming his way. What just happened? Obito was now also quite confused. And then 9 Anbu surrounded him. He suddenly looked very overwhelmed, and suddenly, he looked like he was vaguely remembering his past as the Anbu jumped back as stakes of wood appeared. He rushed at them, but he was running the wrong way, shooting wood at invisible targets until eventually, they started coming his way. He quickly dodged, leaping away. Kakashi realized that, as a smart child, they would have to stop this memory of Obito either by waiting for it to stop or by using the lightning blade as knives to cut through the wood rushing toward the man. The man's memory must have had a similar close-range exchange as when Kakashi had gone to stab him in the arm to shock him out of the memory but just went right through. Although he was almost grabbed, luckily the memory was clearly fighting another person. So, he started using his Sharingan to predict the wood and try to push past this weird intangibility. However, he quickly noticed that Obito was not going to be easy to defeat. Instead, Kakashi jumped back and launched little puddles of water linked only by the slightest bit, looking at where Obito was going and when his hands were moving. He quickly started making hand signs for a quick but stunning lightning jutsu, touching one of the puddles just as Obito threw out an arm. The electricity touched him, even though it was second-hand because of how far Kakashi had been. Obito's eyes quickly became forced wide open, realizing that he had quick memories no more than Rin and what he had done. He looked to Kakashi and the newly discovered Minato, who was walking into the form, holding his son. I'm sorry for the last part, I do believed it contained a bit too much exposition. I'll try to keep this to a minimum and I'll start doing a little side part of the Herzen Sarutobi and his Grandian from now on, as I believe as someone who likes the lore. The data book said that Herzen and his family should be far more strong than they are and have Konohamaru actually be side character that comes up more than once every 300 chapters. Herzen saw the huge spikes of wood and almost turned back, but he quickly decided to let Minato deal with this one. The man needed to become wise all on his own. He brought his grandson to a campsite that he and his old team had used. They had used this place to sit, and he had told them many stories of the past. So, he decided to tell his grandson one. He gestured for the boy to come over and said, "Well, I'll be honest, young man. I used to come here with my own genin team to tell them stories of great heroes of Konoha. But today, I'll tell you the story of your father, a man who lived a life I wish I could have lived." Konohamaru's eyes lit up. The old man was a great Hokage. What life could he possibly want? You see, the stone had been pushing on a village in the outskirts of the Fire Nation. Something that we weren't ready to protect, and so the people there were in danger. Your old man offered to run a 2-day run in almost an hour to save the people. Many called him a fool. Even if he did get there, he would never have the chakra to fight off an army that big. So, your old man, on a mission set for himself, set off. I watched him from the ball in my office, but being the only ninja making Konohara fort at the time, I could not leave with him. He did as he promised and made it there before the stone siege had fully started and fought for many days to defend the people, down to his last ounce of chakra, defending those people. In the end, we will pass that city, and you can see the statue of him. He is considered a hero throughout the Fire Nation after all. Konohamaru's eyes were practically producing light. He wanted to be like his Gramps and his dad. "Gramps, when will we get to Uncle Asuma?" Konohamaru said with a yawn. "Very soon. I'll bet you'll wish it was longer." Konohamaru's eyes were closing. "Yeah, sure. Whatever you say, Gramps." He and his old man slept there the whole night, letting the fire bring warmth throughout the night. Ended making this a bit longer than I expected, lol. The Raikage had been stopped on his way out of the summit. He had been bored to death and needed to fight. As soon as he saw a white plant monster in front of him bowing, his guards were barely able to hold him back. The Mitsukage and many others with him were quite mad that he had accomplished nothing and had been beaten. He wanted that mask man's head, and then he heard a voice, "That man, I know him. Would you like to see him?" The Sushikage had been wanting to particle style the blonde-haired brat into oblivion. Agreeing with him had been quite disturbing, but he was still going to end the man for killing his son. You know there are many ways to end a flying god. The flying god in question had just arrived at a destroyed forest. Obito, will you please make this make sense? Obito was looking around. Rin had died. He was getting a hold of his space and wondered if Minato-sensei was holding his son. Oh yeah, while he was in his cell, Minato had told him, and that nice lady Kushina had won. He was looking around now at Kakashi and the Anbu. Why were the Anbu here? Minato walked towards him and crouched. Calm down, I am not here to hurt you. We want you back here. He handed Naruto over. This is your baby brother, Obito. This is something you want to protect. Many people lose, I have lost, but we can all recover. Our flame can light again. There is no reason to give in to those bad times once more. Hiruzen's and Konohamaru's Kantu is the legendary hero Itakai Sarutobi. Hiruzen and Konohamaru left that camp early in the morning. Konohamaru had started skipping along. How big do you think Dad's statue is? Hiruzen smiled. It was built by the last man he saved. He put it together in the rain to respect him at the gate to rain. It took the man 3 days and 3 nights, with anything he could find. He cut metal with basic chakra, and he shaped wood. It is not bigger than he was because a man is a man, Konohamaru. No matter how strong you can be, unequal to Hashirama Senju, but thinking you are above yourself is pointless. He did not, and never did the man making it. Konohamaru listened to anything about his dad. Who was the man, where is he now? Hiruzen smiled. In the end of the Third War, the man died. But his son, who witnessed his father's passion, scrubs it clean every day and cares, carrying my son's spirit. They believe once danger comes, he will be there for them. It brings much hope. As they continued walking, they soon saw walls and a wooden and metal statue. Konohamaru ran to it with stars in his eyes. Hope you guys like it. Thanks for watching and tell me your recommendation in the comment section down below. Also like, share and subscribe the channel. I will be back with more amazing videos.